If you've been following my series on buying one of these newer old Mercedes-Benz, you're probably wondering why I chose 10 to 15 years. That's the title in every one of the videos, buying a 10 to 15-year-old Mercedes. Well, I think there's three reasons for that. Number one, I think it's where you can get the best bang for your buck. Now, what do I mean by that? If you look at used cars as a whole, they'll start to depreciate after a couple years and the slide becomes a little bit greater, and as you approach 10 years old, it'll start to kind of bottom out, and then right about at 12 years on most cars, that's kind of where the maximum depreciation occurs and the price pretty much stables out as long as the car is kept in good condition. Now, if you neglect it and there's a problem, that formula kind of goes out the window. And then as you move on to 15 years, you're approaching another problem, which I'll get into in point 2. But what I found is at 15 years, and as you go past 15 years and approach 18 years old, that's when you start having problems that are related to the age and not the mileage. For instance, you could have a 70,000 mile car that's 18 years old, and you still may have problems with the car that are related to things like rubber and plastic and seals that just fail due to age, not due to mileage. So when I go looking for the best bang for the buck, I'm trying to find a car right where it gets to the maximum depreciation, but doesn't have devalued so much that you're going to have a lot of problems to deal with to fix as you go through the period of ownership. And that leads me to number 2, mileage. Now the average driver, let's say, drives 12,000 miles a year, let's say. So a 10-year-old car, that's going to be 120,000 miles. And it'll just keep going up as the years go by. And you may be thinking, well, Kent, why is mileage so important? Well, I'm finding on these particular series of Mercedes-Benz, mileage is very important. If you can get one at 100,000 or less, I would highly recommend you go for it. In fact, you go for it to the point where you may have to spend a couple more $1,000. There's certain things, particularly this seal for life transmission, that can be a problem when it gets over 120,000 miles. So it's going to be a little challenging. You're going to look at that era 10 to 15 and you're going to think, okay, I want to find one that's only got 90 to 100,000 miles on it. You're going to have to work at it. Now I've got 2 cars here. They're both model year 2000, and that means they're 13 years old. So that's just right in the middle of that envelope. Now this car has 160,000 and this car has a little over 100,000. And in the future I'll be doing more videos on how to repair these cars, and I think you'll begin to see the difference. The old story that Mercedes will go forever, so why worry about the mileage? Hey, I don't agree with that. And now I'm going to tell you why, because that's the third reason. In my experience, I have found that when a car reaches 100,000 miles, that the love affair begins to wane and the maintenance suffers. Let me repeat that. After 100,000 miles, you're going to see less and less preventative and regular service maintenance done on these cars. That's why you get a high mileage car and you realize the shocks are worn out, the brakes are worn out, the spark plugs and wires are shot. And it's like, hey, the car got to a point where it was so low in value that the owner decided it's not worth putting any money into it, so they're not going to do any preventative maintenance. So when you're looking at buying one of these older Mercedes-Benzes, you want to hit it right in the middle. You want to be able to find a car that has gone down to almost the lowest point in depreciation, but has still not put so many miles on it that you're going to find maintenance issues with it after you buy it. So that's my recommendation, 10 to 15. Try to go 10. You remember in that first video I said, oh, you can get these cars for 10% of their original cost. That's not true with all of them. You have to really work hard to get one for 10% of its original cost that has been highly maintained and has got under 100,000 miles on it. And so you're going to have to juggle this, but it's very important. Those two issues, maintenance and mileage on these 10 to 15-year-old cars become very, very important. And it's hard, very hard to find any of them that are over 15 years old and have been properly maintained and have low mileage.